Okay, this is video number 3, which I hope I can get everything in. I went ahead and rewrote them. F plus g of 1 is f of 1 plus g of 1. I hope you remember from last quarter how to find f of 1. Like if I gave you an equation, you know, if I gave you f of x is x plus 5, you would plug 1 in. So you're plugging that in for the x, which means that is the y. So this is just a table, an x, and then this is a y, and then this is a different y. So f of 1, here's an x value of 1, and so f of 1 is negative 6, and g of 1 is negative 3. So we add it and get negative 1. So g of 0, so 0 is x, so g of 0 is 4, minus f of 0 is negative 2, and so you add that and get 6. And then remembering what we did just on the last video, the first thing you do is you find g of negative 2. So there's negative 2, so g of negative 2 is 0. So in the place of 0, in the place of g of 2, negative 2, you're going to put 0. So now the problem says find f of 0. So there's 0, and there's the f of x equation. So we get negative 2. All right, now let's see if we can do the same thing on a graph. So this graph, the darker graph, is g of x, and the lighter graph is f of x. So again, we need to find f of negative 3. So that's the x value, and the lighter graph is f of x. So f of negative 3 is 4, and then g of negative 3 is the darker graph. G of negative 3 is 1, so when you add them together, you get 5. So g of negative 2 is the darker graph, so g of negative 2 is 2. F of negative 2 is the lighter graph, so that's 3, and so you get 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. So this is multiplication. There's not that funky little 0, O in the middle. So f of 2, so f is the lighter equation, so f of 2 is negative 1, times g of 2, which is the darker equation, is 1, so negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Okay, so let's keep on trucking. So again, I rewrote it in its other form. So we have to find f of 3. So this is x, f of x, this is x, this is g of x. So f of 3 is negative 1. So when I plug that in now, it wants me to find g of negative 1. Negative 1 is x, so g of negative 1 is 8. So we got to find g of 6. So that g of 6 is 3. So now to find f of 3 is negative 1. All right, another graph. G of x is the line. F of x is the v, the absolute value. So the first thing we want to find is g of negative 1, which is the line. So there's negative 1. So g of negative 1 is negative 3. So when I plug negative 3 in the place, I have f of negative 3, and that's the absolute value. So f of negative 3 is 1. F of 0 is the absolute value. So f of 0 is 2. So now the problem says to find g of 2, which is the line. G of 2 is negative 6. All right, so this video is all on the worksheet. So anyway, we'll talk about it, of course, more on Monday, but y'all have a good weekend. Bye.